Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about the chain rule. So the chain rule says that the derivative of a function which is influenced by two or more functions, its first derivative is given by the first derivative of the first function with the second one left alone multiplied by the derivative of the second function. In this case we've called the functions f1 and f2. So what does that mean? So let's take a look at a couple of examples. So in our first example, if we have f of x is given by (5x plus 3) all to the fifth power, and we can see straight away that our f of x is influenced by two different functions. So our f1 of x is given by f2 of x all to the fifth power, so therefore our f2 of x is equal to 5x plus 3. So therefore our first derivative, f prime of x, will be given by f1 of f2 of x prime, which basically means the function on the outside. So we have our f2 to the fifth power, so using the power rule, we're left with 5 times our f2 of x, and then reduce the power by 1 to the fourth power, multiplied by the first derivative of f2 of x. So using the rules discussed in previous videos, the first derivative of 5x plus 3 is just going to be 5. So multiply by 5. So therefore, our f prime of x is going to be equal to 25 times 5x plus 3 to the fourth power. So what we did was we took the derivative of the first part of the function, so using the power rule, we times by that power and then reduce the power by 1, and then we times by the derivative of our second part, which is 5. If we look at a slightly more complicated example of the case of f of x is equal to the square root of x squared plus 7, which might seem a bit trickier at first, but this is exactly the same thing as x squared plus 7 all to the 1/2 power. So in this example, our f1 of x is given by our f2 of x to the power of 1/2. And our f2 of x is given by what's inside the bracket, x squared plus 7. So therefore the first derivative, f prime of this function, can be given by, using the power rule, we times by the whole power, so 1/2, and this bracket remains the same, so x squared plus 7. Then we reduce the power by 1, so that'll be minus 1/2, and then we times by the derivative of what's inside the brackets, times by 2x, which simplifies down quite simply to x times by x squared plus 7 to the minus 1/2 power, which is exactly the same thing as x divided by the square root of x squared plus 7. And it doesn't just have to be the entire bracket to some power, it can also be things like trigonometric functions. So, for example, if our f of x is equal to the sine of 3x squared plus 1, then our f prime of x, using the same notation as before, so the derivative of sine is cosine, so we would have the cosine of 3x squared plus 1 multiplied by the derivative of what's inside the bracket, so multiplied by 6x. Which is equal to 6x cosine of 3x squared plus 1. And the chain rule is a very important rule, and one of which is forgotten quite frequently. And it's also where a lot of mistakes can happen. So even at the most basic level, if you had, for example, f of x is equal to the cosine of 2x, then its first derivative, f prime of x, a lot of people would make the mistake of putting that the first derivative was equal to the minus the sine of 2x, and they'd forget to multiply by the derivative of this bracket. So it would be times by 2. So it would be minus 2 times the sine of 2x. There's so much room for error in the chain rule, as a lot of functions are not entirely obvious as being in this format, such as the logarithmic forms and some certain trigonometric functions. So it's crucial to remember how the chain rule works. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the comment box below. I'd be more than happy to explain how this works in further detail, or if anyone has any example problems they'd like me to solve. In the next video, we're going to look at higher order derivatives. See you there.